Ren had learned to make herself invisible over 3 years of cleaning up the Iron Syndicate's messes, had perfected the art of moving through blood-stained warehouses and torture chambers without seeing anything worth remembering. She kept her natural silver blonde hair hidden beneath cheap black dye that she reapplied every 2 weeks in grimy motel bathrooms, kept her unusual violet eyes covered with brown contacts that made her vision slightly blurry but kept her unremarkable, kept her head down and her mouth shut, so no one would notice the small spark of humanity she hadn't quite managed to extinguish. Cleaners who drew attention didn't last long in the Syndicate system, and Ren had survived this long by being forgettable, invisible, nothing worth noticing. Tonight she was on cleanup duty in the abandoned warehouse district, a task given only to the most trusted cleaners because it meant being alone in the places where the Syndicate dumped their darkest secrets, places where escape might be possible if you were stupid enough to try. Ren had learned years ago that escape was a fantasy. Every gang within the city had agreements with the Syndicate to return runaway workers. The streets were full of enforcers who'd kill a lone woman for sport, and even if by some miracle she made it out of the city, what then? She had no family, no resources, no identity beyond the work papers that marked her as Syndicate property. Running would just mean dying tired instead of dying here, and at least here she knew what to expect. She carried her bucket of industrial cleaner and her bag of scrub brushes through the deepest sections of the warehouse district, checking off rooms on her assignment sheet, sanitizing spaces where terrible things had happened just hours before. The Iron Syndicate had gotten rich off their underground operations, rich enough to challenge even the established crime families for territorial control and influence. They worked their cleaners until they dropped and then just recruited more, an endless supply of desperate people from families they'd destroyed in their expansion. Ren had been one of those unfortunates, recruited at 22 when the Syndicate enforcers had massacred her entire family because her father, a low-level enforcer himself, had tried to leave the organization. She tried not to think about that night, about her parents who died begging for mercy they'd never receive, about her little sister Lily, only 12 years old, who'd been shot in front of Ren to ensure her compliance, about the life she'd been supposed to have. College, maybe, or travel, or just the simple freedom to choose her own path. The future that had been stolen when the Syndicate's lieutenant had decided that making an example was worth more than letting one man walk away. The sound hit her as she approached the sealed basement section, a low, agonized growl that resonated through the concrete walls like distant thunder. Ren froze, every survival instinct screaming at her to turn around and leave. She'd been explicitly told that this section was off-limits, that it had been sealed for a week for special projects, and that cleaners who asked questions about special projects became part of them. But that sound, raw pain mixed with defiant rage, the sound of something dying slowly but refusing to break, called to the part of her that 3 years of horror hadn't quite killed. The part that remembered her sister's favorite color was yellow. The part that still believed, somewhere deep and buried, that she'd been human once. Ren's hands were shaking as she set down her cleaning supplies and approached the reinforced steel door. It was marked with warning symbols she recognized from other assignments: silver hazard, magical containment, authorized personnel only. The lock was complex but not impossible. She'd learned to pick most Syndicate locks because sometimes the difference between finishing a job on time and facing punishment was getting through a door fast. The mechanism clicked. She pulled the heavy door open, and the smell hit her: first blood, infected wounds, and the acrid metallic scent of silver-burning flesh. Then she saw him. A massive black wolf, easily twice the size of any shifter she'd ever seen, lay wrapped in layers of industrial silver chains. The chains weren't just restraints, they were covered in suppression runes that glowed faintly in the darkness, the kind of magic-etched metal that prevented shifting and drained life force hour by hour, day by day. The wolf's amber gold eyes tracked her movement, blazing with pain and rage, and something that looked almost like hope, even as that light was visibly fading. Ren recognized this level of overkill immediately. This wasn't just a dangerous shifter the Syndicate wanted contained. This was someone they feared enough to torture slowly, publicly within their organization, as a lesson about what happened to those who challenged them. Helping him was treason. Getting caught would mean torture that would make her sister's quick death look like mercy, then disposal, then her body would become tomorrow night's cleanup job for another invisible cleaner who'd learned to look away. But those amber eyes held hers, and Ren heard herself whisper the words that would shatter her invisible existence forever. "I'm going to get you out of here." Ren's hands moved with practiced efficiency as she pulled industrial bolt cutters from her cleaning kit, the same tools she used to break locks when rooms needed accessing and keys weren't provided. The wolf watched her with those blazing amber eyes, his massive body tensed as if expecting another form of torture. She dropped to her knees beside him, the concrete cold and damp beneath her, and gripped the first chain. "Stay quiet," she murmured, positioning the cutters. "Enforcers patrol every 2 hours. We have maybe 90 minutes before the next sweep." The silver chain was thick, designed to restrain something far stronger than human, and wrapped around the wolf's throat so tightly it had left raw, burned grooves in his fur and flesh. Wren gripped the metal directly, no gloves, no protection, and the wolf made a sound of alarm. But the silver didn't burn her. It never had. Her grandmother had called it a blessing from the moon goddess. This strange immunity that let her handle the metal that was poison to shifters and painful to most humans. Her mother had called it a genetic mutation that occurred maybe once in a generation. Wren had learned to call it survival, because it was the only reason the Syndicate hadn't killed her outright when they'd discovered it accidentally during her first month of cleaning. They'd kept her alive because she was useful, someone who could sanitize torture chambers and handle silver-based security systems without protective gear. The bolt cutters bit into the chain. Metal screamed. The wolf tensed but didn't move. Didn't make a sound beyond harsh, labored breathing. The chain snapped. "One down. At least 15 to go. This is going to take a while," Wren said quietly, moving to the next restraint. Sweat was already beading on her forehead despite the basement's cold. "But I promise I won't leave you. I promise you're getting out." She kept talking while she worked, partially to keep him calm, and partially to fill the terrible silence. She warned him about patrol routes, described the best escape paths through the warehouse district, explained which maintenance tunnels led away from Syndicate territory. Her hands cramped from the physical effort, not from silver burn, but from cutting industrial-grade metal for over an hour. When the bolt cutters couldn't break through the thickest chains, she switched to a hacksaw from her kit, the blade designed for cutting through rebar and steel pipes. The suppression runes etched into the chains made everything harder. She could feel the magic fighting her, could see the runes flaring brighter each time she damaged a chain, as if the enchantment itself was trying to prevent escape. But Wren was nothing if not persistent. 3 years of cleaning up after monsters had taught her that sometimes survival meant pushing through when every instinct screamed to stop. When she finally cut through the chain wrapped around his throat, the wolf took his first full breath in what must have been days. The sound was agonized and relieved all at once, his massive body shuddering. Wren's own breathing was ragged now, adrenaline and fear catching up with her. Her hands were bleeding from blisters and cuts from effort, from metal edges, not from the silver itself. She worked faster now, attacking chest restraints and leg bindings with desperate speed. Metal shavings covered the floor around them, evidence that would need cleaning if she survived this. Behind her, she could hear the distant sounds of the warehouse footsteps on upper levels, voices calling to each other. The normal sounds of Syndicate operations that suddenly felt threatening. The last chain fell away with a clatter that seemed deafening. The wolf lay still for a moment, as if unable to believe he was free. Then, with visible effort, he pushed himself upright on trembling legs. Wren started frantically gathering chains, her cleaner instincts screaming that she needed to hide evidence. "You need to go now," she said urgently. "They'll torture everyone in the cleaning crew if they know I helped. They'll..." "Wait." The voice came from the wolf's throat, rough, almost human, and Wren watched in shock as power rippled through the basement. His form began to change, bones restructuring, fur receding. The transformation seemed to take forever, weakened by days of suppression. But when it finished, a man stood before her. A man who was easily 6'5", naked and covered in silver burns and torture marks that painted terrible stories across his skin. Black hair fell past his shoulders, tangled and matted with blood, amber gold eyes that burned with intensity despite obvious weakness, and a presence God's, the presence that screamed danger and power and absolute lethality even while injured. Wren's heart stopped as recognition slammed into her. She'd heard his name whispered among enforcers with fear and grudging respect. She'd cleaned rooms where his organization's movements were discussed like weather patterns that could destroy everything. She'd just freed Talon Black, the Alpha King who controlled the entire Eastern Seaboard's criminal underworld, captured during what was supposed to be a peace negotiation, and she'd committed the worst possible treason against the city's most brutal gang. Talon took a step toward her, his amber eyes blazing with an intensity that made Wren's breath catch despite his obvious weakness. "You freed me." His voice was rough, damaged from days without speaking, but it carried absolute certainty. "You touched silver with your bare hands to save me. You risked your life for a stranger." Wren backed toward the door, panic flooding her system like ice water. "You need to leave right now. If they find you here, if they know someone helped you..." Her voice cracked. They'll torture everyone I know to death looking for accomplices. They'll kill Ivy and Marcus and Sophia. They'll tear apart every cleaner in this district. You have to run. Talon shook his head, swaying slightly but never breaking eye contact. I'm not leaving without you. You don't understand. You're mine now. The words were spoken with absolute conviction, as if he was stating a fundamental law of the universe. By law of the moon goddess and right of the mate bond, you belong to me. Where I go, you go. The words hit Ren like a physical blow, stealing the air from her lungs. 3 years. 3 years of being property, of being owned, of cleaning up after monsters who treated human lives like disposable resources. And now a crime lord, the most dangerous man in the eastern seaboard's underworld, was claiming ownership like she was a prize he'd won. I don't belong to anyone. The words came out shaking with rage and terror. I'm not your prize for getting rescued. I'm not some trophy you get to claim because I did the right thing. She was trembling now, fists clenched at her sides. I freed you because leaving you to die in chains would make me as monstrous as them. Not because I wanted to trade one collar for another. Talon opened his mouth to respond, but his legs suddenly buckled. He tried to catch himself against the wall, but fever and silver poisoning were clearly overwhelming whatever strength he had left. His skin was burning hot, sweat slicking his body despite the basement's cold, and she could see tremors running through his muscles. Ren moved without thinking, catching him before he hit the concrete. Their size difference was absurd. He was easily a foot taller and probably twice her weight, but adrenaline and 3 years of moving bodies gave her enough strength to keep him semi-upright. His skin against hers was like touching a furnace. You're burning up, she said, panic cutting through anger. The silver poisoning, it's spreading. You're going to die if you don't get help. Can you walk? Can you make it out of here? Talon's arm came around her shoulders, using her as support, and even in his weakened state she could feel the coiled power in him. I can walk. His breath was hot against her hair. But I'm not leaving you to face consequences alone. You freed me, that makes you mine to protect. You're coming with me. I don't need your protection. They'll kill you. His amber eyes found hers, and the certainty there was absolute. The moment they discover I'm gone, they'll execute every cleaner who had access to this building. You know that. I know that. You're not sacrificing yourself because I was too weak to say the right words. Ren wanted to argue, wanted to scream that she wasn't his responsibility, wasn't his anything. But he was right about one thing: the Syndicate would slaughter everyone remotely connected to this basement. They'd torture first, trying to find accomplices, and then they'd kill slowly to send a message. Ivy, Marcus, Sophia, everyone she'd warned, everyone who might have fled or might have stayed, they were all dead the moment someone discovered that empty basement. And arguing with a dying, possessive alpha about terminology, while enforcers could arrive any second, was pointless. Fine, she bit out, adjusting her grip to better support his weight. You can walk, we walk together, and I'll help you get to your territory. But we're having serious words about this mine thing once you're not actively dying. Clear? Talon's smile was all predator despite his weakness. Crystal clear. Good, now move. We have maybe 40 minutes before the next patrol, and you're leaving a blood trail that a blind enforcer could follow. Ren looked at Talon, then toward the upper levels of the warehouse where she knew the other cleaners would be finishing their shifts. I can't leave without warning them. When they find you gone, they'll execute everyone who was here tonight. I need 5 minutes. Talon's jaw tightened, but he nodded. 5 minutes. I'll wait in the shadows near the loading dock. But Ren. His hand caught her wrist, his grip fevered but gentle. If you're not back in 6, I'm coming to find you. She ran. Ren found Ivy first, the older woman who'd been a cleaner for 10 years, who'd taught Ren how to get bloodstains out of concrete and which enforcers to avoid. She was in the second-floor break room, counting out her pittance of payment for the night's work. Ivy, listen to me. Ren grabbed her shoulders. I freed the Alpha King, Talon Black. He's alive and I'm helping him escape. They're going to tear this place apart looking for accomplices. You need to run, now. Ivy's eyes went wide with terror. You did what? Ren, I know what they'll do. That's why you need to leave. Get as far from here as you can, tonight. She found Marcus next. The former accountant whose gambling debts had gotten him recruited 3 years ago. He was in the storage room, replacing cleaning supplies. When she told him, his hands started shaking so badly he dropped the bottle of industrial cleaner. You're insane, he whispered. You're going to get us all killed. You're already dead if you stay. Run. Young Sophia was hardest, 16 years old, brought in 6 months ago when her mother tried to steal from the Syndicate. The girl looked at Ren with such desperate hope and terror that it physically hurt. "Come with me," Ren begged. "Please, Sophia. Just run." "Where?" Sophia's voice broke. "Where would I go? I have no one. Nowhere. Anywhere is better than here. Please." Some believed her and fled into the night, disappearing into the city's shadows. Some thought she'd lost her mind and went back to work, convinced she was having some kind of breakdown. Some were too afraid to move, paralyzed by years of conditioning that taught them running meant dying. Ren did what she could, then ran back to the loading dock where Talon waited in shadows that seemed to bend around him despite his weakness. They moved through the warehouse district together, Ren navigating because she knew these streets intimately. 3 years of disposing of evidence and bodies had taught her every patrol route, every dead zone where cameras didn't reach, every alley that connected to maintenance tunnels. Talon leaned heavily on her, his breathing growing more labored with each block they covered. Behind them, alarms suddenly split the night, a wailing siren that meant emergency, that meant prison break, that meant hunt. Someone had found the empty basement. "Faster," Ren urged, but Talon was stumbling now, his weight nearly dragging them both down. Silver poisoning was spreading through his system, the fever burning higher. They'd covered maybe 10 blocks when his legs finally gave out completely. He collapsed in an alley between 2 abandoned buildings, his back against brick wall, chest heaving with the effort to breathe. Ren dropped beside him, panic clawing at her throat. "No, no, no, stay with me. You can't die now. Not after." Her hands frantically searched his pockets, looking for anything that might help. Her fingers closed around something cylindrical, an emergency injector, the kind high-level criminals carried. She pulled it out. "Synthesized shifter healing serum mixed with silver neutralizer," the label said. "Expensive. Illegal. Possibly their only chance." "This is going to hurt," she warned, and jammed the injector against his neck. Talon's body convulsed violently the moment the medicine hit his system. His back arched, muscles seizing as the serum fought the silver poisoning spreading through his veins. Ren threw herself across him, pinning him down so the seizures wouldn't slam his head against the concrete, her hands on his face, his shoulders, anywhere she could reach. "Stay with me," she whispered desperately. "Please stay with me. We're going to make it. I promise we're going to make it. Just hold on." The seizures lasted forever, probably only 2 minutes, but it felt like hours. Finally, Talon's body went limp, his breathing evening out, fever breaking with sweat that soaked them both. His hand caught her wrist where she was still holding his face. "You saved my life twice now." His voice was rough but stronger than before. "That makes you irreplaceable." Ren tried to pull away, uncomfortable with the intensity in his eyes. "I'm nobody. Just a cleaner who got lucky with genetics." "No." Talon's grip tightened. "You're someone brave enough to cut chains in a torture basement when walking away would have been safer. Someone who risked everything to warn people who might not even believe her. That's not nobody, Ren. That's extraordinary." Somewhere in the distance, she could hear boots on pavement. Enforcers, spreading out to search. "We need to move," she said quietly. "Then let's move." Talon stood, still unsteady but functional now, the medicine doing its work. "My territory is east. Can you get us there?" Ren looked at the man who kept calling her extraordinary, who declared she belonged to him, who was either her salvation or another kind of trap. "I can get us there," she said. "Follow me." They moved through the city's underbelly like ghosts, Ren leading them through maintenance tunnels and forgotten alleys that most people didn't know existed. 3 years of disposing of bodies had given her an intimate knowledge of the routes where cameras didn't reach, and patrols never ventured. Talon followed close behind, his strength returning with each passing hour as the medicine continued fighting the silver poisoning in his system. "How do you know these routes?" he asked as they navigated through a subway maintenance tunnel that reeked of mold and stagnant water. Ren's hands traced the tunnel wall, finding her way in near darkness. "Body disposal. The Syndicate doesn't like leaving evidence in obvious places. I learned every path that leads away from their territory." Her voice was flat, emotionless. 3 years of practice makes you very good at being invisible." 3 years, Talon repeated. "How did you end up with them?" The question hung in the air between them. Ren had spent 3 years never talking about it, never letting herself think too hard about that night. But something about the darkness and exhaustion and the fact that she'd already burned her entire life down made the truth spill out. "My father was a low-level enforcer. Not important, just muscle they used for collections and intimidation. He tried to leave." Her voice cracked slightly. "He thought he'd saved enough money, thought we could disappear to another city. Start over. But the Syndicate doesn't let people leave. They came for us one night. Made him watch while she couldn't finish. Didn't need to. My mother, my father, my little sister Lily. Ren's hands were shaking now. She was 12 years old. They shot her in front of me to make sure I understood what cooperation looked like. Then they gave me a mop and bucket and told me to clean up the mess. Talon had gone absolutely still behind her, and when she glanced back, his amber eyes were blazing with barely controlled rage. His jaw was so tight she could see the muscle jumping. They kept you alive as a message, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Living evidence of what happens when you try to leave. And they discovered my silver immunity within the first month, so I became useful. Too useful to kill. She laughed, bitter and broken. Lucky me. I've been trying to dismantle their human trafficking pipeline for years, Talon said. But they're too entrenched, too connected to the other gangs. Every time I get close, they scatter like rats. His hand found her shoulder in the darkness. I'm going to burn their entire operation to the ground. For you. For Lily. For everyone they've broken. They walked in tense silence for another 20 minutes. Ren leading them through tunnels that would eventually emerge near the east side Talon's territory. Finally, she couldn't hold the question back any longer. What did you mean? Her voice was small in the echoing tunnel. When you said I belong to you, that I'm yours. Talon stopped, and she felt his presence in the darkness as he moved to face her. In the dim emergency lighting of the tunnel, his amber eyes seemed to glow. I phrased that poorly. I was weak, fevered, not thinking clearly. He ran a hand through his tangled hair. You saved my life, which creates a debt I can never repay. But more than that, he paused, as if weighing his words carefully. My wolf recognized you the moment you entered that room. Recognized you as my mate. Ren stared at him, struggling to process the words. That's not true. Mates are myths. Stories criminals tell to justify their obsessions. They're real. His voice held absolute certainty. I know you don't feel it yet. You probably won't until the bond is completed. Until we... He stopped, shook his head. But I felt it immediately. The recognition, the certainty. You're my true mate, chosen by fate, or the moon goddess, or whatever force governs these things. That's not possible. Ren's voice was shaking. I'm nobody. Just a cleaner covered in other people's blood. You're the Alpha King. You could have anyone. You're mine. The words were fierce, possessive, but then his expression softened. And that's not ownership, Ren. That's not another collar to replace the Syndicate's. In my world, being someone's mate means partnership. It means I'll protect you with everything I have, provide for you, destroy anyone who tries to hurt you. It means your choices matter, your voice matters, your freedom matters. His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. It means you'll never be invisible again. Never be nothing. Because you're everything to me. Ren didn't know whether to believe him or run. But standing in that darkened tunnel with his hand gentle on her face despite the violence he was capable of, she realized something terrifying. She wanted to believe him. Before Ren could form a response, Talon went rigid, his head snapping toward the tunnel behind them. His nostrils flared, and she watched his entire body shift into predator mode, muscles coiling, eyes blazing amber gold in the dim light. We need to move now. His voice was a low growl. Syndicate enforcers. At least 8, maybe more. They're tracking us. He grabbed her hand and ran, pulling her faster than her legs could manage on their own. Ren stumbled, her lungs burning as they sprinted through the maintenance tunnels. Behind them, she could hear it now, boots on concrete. Multiple sets, moving with military precision. Shouts echoing off tunnel walls, the distinctive metallic click of weapons being readied. I can't, Ren gasped, her body screaming in protest. I can't outrun them. I'm not a fighter. I'm not. Leave me and save yourself. Talon's response was a feral growl that raised every hair on her body. He yanked her sideways into a maintenance alcove barely big enough for 2 people, pressing her back against the cold metal wall, his body completely shielding hers from the tunnel. Not happening. His voice was granite. When they get here, I'm shifting. I'm going to take them down. But you... His hands gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his blazing eyes. You stay hidden. You don't come out no matter what you hear, no matter what you see. Promise me. You can't fight 8 armed men while you're still recovering from silver poisoning, Ren said desperately. They'll kill you. Please, just... I'm the Alpha King. His smile was all predator, all teeth. I've survived worse than this. But I need to know you're safe before I can focus. I need to know they can't reach you. His thumb traced her jawline. Stay hidden, Ren. Please. She nodded, unable to speak past the terror clogging her throat. Talon kissed her, then hard and claiming and full of dark promise. His lips bruised hers, his hand fisting in her dyed hair, and Ren felt something fundamental shift inside her chest. Then he pulled back, stepped away from the alcove, and power exploded through the tunnel. The shift was faster this time, his body reforming into the massive black wolf she'd freed from silver chains. He was magnificent and terrifying, easily twice the size of a normal wolf, with fangs designed to tear through flesh and bone. The enforcers rounded the corner at a dead run, weapons raised. They saw the wolf and faltered just for a second, just long enough for Talon to attack. Ren pressed herself against the alcove wall, one hand clamped over her mouth to muffle her breathing, and watched through a gap in the metal as the Alpha King went to war. He moved with surgical precision and brutal efficiency, each strike calculated to kill. The first enforcer went down with his throat torn out before he could fire a shot. The second managed to get off a round that ricocheted off tunnel walls before Talon's claws opened his chest. It was violence like Ren had never witnessed, not the casual cruelty of the Syndicate's torture chambers, but the focused lethality of an apex predator defending what was his. But he was taking hits. A bullet caught his shoulder. A knife scored his flank. His blood splattered the concrete and filled the air with copper scent. Ren bit down on her hand to keep from screaming, from running to help, from doing anything that would distract him. The last enforcer fell with Talon's jaws locked around his neck. Silence crashed over the tunnel like a physical force. Then Talon shifted back to human form, and Ren saw him sway dangerously on his feet. Fresh wounds covered his body, blood streaming from the bullet wound in his shoulder. A deep knife gash across his ribs, still bleeding freely. She ran to him before conscious thought caught up with survival instinct. "You're an idiot," she said, catching him before he could fall. An absolute idiot who almost died again. Talon's grin was blood-stained but genuine. "But I didn't die. Because I had you to protect." His hand found her face, leaving a smear of blood on her cheek. "Worth it. You're worth everything." "You're delirious from blood loss," Ren said, but her voice was shaking. "Can you walk? We need to move before more come." "I can walk." He proved it by standing straighter, though he kept one hand on her shoulder for support. "My territory is close now. Another 15 minutes. We're almost home." "Home," he'd said. As if she belonged there. As if she belonged with him. Ren looked at the bodies littering the tunnel, at the man who'd just killed 8 people to protect her, and realized with terrifying clarity that she was already in too deep to turn back. They emerged from the maintenance tunnels into a part of the city Ren had only seen from a distance, the east side, where buildings gleamed with wealth and power, where the streets were clean and the people moved with purpose rather than fear. Talon's territory. She could feel the difference immediately, a shift in the air itself. His people were everywhere, lookouts on corners who straightened when they saw Talon approaching. Enforcers posted outside businesses who immediately began speaking into radios. Shop owners who stepped out of their establishments with relief flooding their faces. This wasn't the Syndicate's kingdom of terror. This was something else organized. Yes, criminal. Absolutely. But there was a structure here that felt different from the chaos and cruelty she'd known. A woman with short dark hair and a fighter's build came sprinting toward them from a high-rise building. She nearly tackled Talon with the force of her relief. "Boss, we've been searching for a week. The whole organization has been turned inside out trying to find you. We thought." Kira's voice broke, then steadied as her eyes found Ren. "Who's this?" Talon kept Ren close, his hand at her lower back. "This is Ren. She freed me from the Syndicate's basement. She cut through silver chains for over an hour to save my life. Then she saved it again, getting me home." His voice carried, drawing the attention of the growing crowd of his people. "She's to be treated with absolute respect and given any protection she needs." Then he dropped the bomb. "She's my mate." "Your future queen?" The crowd erupted, shocked gasps, excited whispers, some skeptical muttering. Ren felt her face burn with embarrassment and fury. He'd done it again, claimed her publicly, announced her as his property, without asking, without giving her any choice in the matter. "We need to talk." Her voice was quiet but carried steel that cut through the noise. "Privately, now." Talon looked down at her, read the rage in her expression, and nodded. "Kira, medical team to my penthouse." "Ren, come with me." The penthouse was everything she'd expected from a crime lord's headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, expensive furniture that probably cost more than the Syndicate had paid her in 3 years, high-end security systems, and the clear nerve center of a massive criminal empire. The moment the door closed behind them, Ren's control shattered. "You can't keep doing that!" She whirled on him, 3 years of suppressed rage finally breaking free. "You can't announce I'm yours without asking me first. You can't just declare me your queen like I'm a trophy you won. I spent 3 years as property, Talon, 3 years of being owned, being used, being told I was nothing but a tool for other people's purposes. I won't trade the Syndicate's collar for yours, no matter how much prettier it is, no matter how expensive the cage." Talon looked genuinely shocked, his expression shifting from confusion to dawning horror to shame. "You're right." The words came immediately. No defensiveness, no excuses. "Gods, you're right. I keep in my world. Public claiming is protection. It tells everyone you're under my protection. That hurting you means war with me. But I'm taking away your choice. I'm making decisions about your life without asking you first." He ran a hand through his blood-matted hair. "I'm sorry, truly sorry." The immediate apology stunned her. The Syndicate never apologized, never admitted fault, never showed weakness. "I don't want to be claimed," Ren said, her voice softer but still firm. "I don't want to be anyone's mate or queen or possession. I just want to be free to choose my own path, to make my own decisions. To be a person instead of property." Talon nodded, his amber eyes holding hers with painful intensity. "Then choose. I'll give you your own secure apartment in this building, separate from mine, your own space entirely. You can come and go as you please. No guards following you unless you request them. No restrictions on your freedom." He moved closer but didn't touch her. "I'll court you properly, let you decide if you want this life, if you want me, without pressure or public declarations. The mate bond doesn't have to be completed. You can walk away entirely if that's what you want." "Just like that?" Ren couldn't hide her suspicion. "You'll just let me go?" "I'll let you choose," Talon corrected. "Because you deserve that choice. Because you deserve to be free after 3 years of slavery." His smile was sad. "And because forcing you to be mine would make me no better than them." Ren stared at this man, this Alpha King, this crime lord, this predator who just killed 8 people to protect her and saw something she hadn't expected, genuine respect for her autonomy. It terrified her almost as much as the mate bond did. Over the following weeks, Talon proved his word in ways that left Ren constantly off balance. The apartment he gave her was more than luxury, it was sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling windows with blackout curtains she could control. A kitchen stocked with actual food, instead of the expired rations the Syndicate had provided. A bathroom with water pressure that didn't fluctuate between scalding and freezing. Her own space, her own key. No guards posted outside her door unless she requested them. He introduced her to the legitimate aspects of his empire gradually, as if understanding that too much too fast would overwhelm her. A club on the waterfront where the manager was a former foster kid Talon had helped years ago. A restaurant chain that employed people with criminal records no one else would hire. Real estate holdings that provided affordable housing in neighborhoods other landlords had abandoned. It wasn't all legal, but it wasn't the Syndicate's brand of cruelty either. "You're not what I expected," Ren told him one evening as they reviewed security protocols for his businesses. "Crime lords, in my experience, don't run rehabilitation programs." "Crime lords, in your experience, tortured people for profit," Talon said quietly. "I prefer building loyalty through respect. It's more sustainable." Ren started working in his organization's operations center almost by accident. She'd been observing their logistics coordination and mentioned 3 ways they could streamline their routes. Kira had handed her a tablet and said, "Show us." 3 years of meticulous cleanup work had taught her to see patterns, to organize chaos, to track multiple moving pieces simultaneously, skills that translated perfectly to coordinating a criminal empire's legitimate operations. She made unexpected friends. Kira, whose respect for Ren's survival skills bordered on admiration. Leo, the tech expert who appreciated her systematic thinking and taught her to code. Even some of the former street kids Talon's organization had taken in teenagers who saw in Ren someone who understood what it meant to survive the underworld. The discovery happened during a security training session. Kira was demonstrating silver-laced weapons the organization kept for defense against hostile shifters. Ren reached out to examine one without thinking, and the room went silent. "How are you touching that?" Leo asked, staring. "That's pure silver. It should be burning your hand." Ren froze, the old terror of being discovered flooding back. But Kira's expression wasn't predatory, it was calculating in a different way. "Silver immunity," the woman said quietly. "I've heard of it. Genetic mutation. Incredibly rare. She looked at Ren with new understanding. That's how you cut the chains. And why the Syndicate kept you alive. Ren's voice shook. Please don't. Don't what? Exploit you? Kira's laugh was bitter. Ren, do you understand how valuable this gift could be for protecting this organization? Silver-based attacks are our biggest vulnerability. Having someone who can handle silver weapons, disarm silver traps, even just touch the stuff without gloves. She paused. But only with your consent. Only if you choose to use this gift. It doesn't make you a tool. It makes you powerful. That night, Ren found herself in Talon's office, nervously clutching her hands together. He was reviewing reports, and when he looked up and saw her expression, he immediately set everything aside. What's wrong? Kira knows. About the silver immunity. The words tumbled out. I touched a weapon during training and everyone saw. And I know the Syndicate kept me alive because I was useful. And I understand if that changes things. Talon was around the desk and taking her hands before she could finish. His grip was gentle, his amber eyes intense. Listen to me very carefully, he said. I value you, Ren. The woman who chose compassion in a torture chamber when walking away would have been safer. The woman who warned other cleaners even though it put her at risk. The woman who's been building a life here through sheer courage and determination. His thumbs traced circles on her palms. Your gift is remarkable, yes, but I'd want you even if you lost it tomorrow. You're not valuable because of what you can do, you're valuable because of who you are. Something in Ren's chest loosened. A knot she'd been carrying for 3 years finally beginning to unravel. Over the next months, she continued building a real life. Learning to code with Leo, training with Kira, having coffee with the former street kids who'd adopted her as an unofficial mentor, and falling for Talon despite every attempt not to falling for the way he asked her opinion on business decisions, the way he respected her boundaries even when the mate bond clearly pulled at him, the way he treated her like a partner rather than a possession. You're staring at him again, Kira said one afternoon, catching Ren watching Talon work with his security team. Ren felt her face heat. I'm not. The mate bond isn't ownership, Kira said gently. It's partnership. 2 people choosing each other, building something together. Talon would kill anyone who tried to control you, including himself. That's why he's giving you space. He's waiting for you to choose him, not because fate says you should, but because you want to. Ren watched Talon laugh at something one of his enforcers said, watched him treat even his lowest-ranking people with respect, and realized with terrifying clarity that she was already choosing him. She just hadn't admitted it yet. 3 months after Ren had cut silver chains in a basement, the Iron Syndicate finally made their move. The attack started small, a club fire, vandalized warehouses, suppliers suddenly refusing contracts. Then they escalated. 3 of Talon's enforcers were found dead in Syndicate territory, their bodies displayed as a message. The war everyone had been anticipating was coming. Ren was in the operations center coordinating defensive strategies when the commotion started. Voices raised in alarm, security rushing to intercept someone at the building's entrance. Then Kira appeared in the doorway, her expression grim. You have visitors. Says she knows you. Ivy stumbled into the room, followed by Marcus and 2 other cleaners Ren recognized from the warehouse district. They looked half-starved and terrified, but alive. Relief flooded through Ren so powerfully it nearly buckled her knees. You made it out, she breathed, pulling Ivy into a fierce hug. Barely. The older woman's voice was shaking. We've been hiding, running, trying to stay ahead of them. But Ren, we need to warn you they know. Ice settled in Ren's stomach. Know what? About your silver immunity. They've been tearing apart every cleaner they can catch, trying to figure out who helped the Alpha King escape. Someone finally broke. Told them about your mutation. Marcus stepped forward, his face haggard. They're planning a massive assault, not just to eliminate Talon to reclaim you. They see your gift as a weapon they've been searching for. Someone who can handle silver-based supernatural weapons without harm. The room went silent. Ren felt every eye turn toward her. Saw Talon appear in the doorway with an expression that promised violence. When? His voice was deadly calm. 3 days. Maybe less. They're mobilizing everything, every enforcer, every asset, calling in favors from allied gangs. Ivy gripped Ren's shoulders. I'm sorry. We tried to get here sooner, but... You did perfectly, Ren said, even as her mind raced. 3 days. The Syndicate was coming for her, and they'd burn Talon's entire organization to get her. All these people, Kira, Leo, the former street kids, everyone who'd welcomed her would die because she'd chosen compassion in a basement. That night, Ren packed a small bag in her apartment. Just essentials. Enough to survive for a few days while she figured out how to turn herself in without getting immediately killed. If she left now, if she removed herself from the equation, maybe the Syndicate would call off the assault. Maybe she could save the people who'd become family. She made it to the lobby before Talon appeared, blocking the exit with his considerable presence. "Where are you going?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "Away. Somewhere they can find me without having to go through your organization." Ren's hands were shaking. "I'm ending this before it starts." "You're sacrificing yourself." It wasn't a question. "I'm saving everyone else." She tried to move past him, but he caught her shoulders. "Let me go, Talon. Please. I'm not worth a war. You're worth everything." His eyes blazed with amber fire. "And if they want you, they'll have to go through me and every single person loyal to me. You're not just my mate. Ren, you're family to everyone here. We protect family. We don't trade them to monsters to buy peace. People will die. People will die anyway. That's what the Syndicate does. They kill. They destroy. They take. We've been heading toward this war for years." His hands gentled on her shoulders. "But this time, we're fighting for something worth protecting. We're fighting for you." Ren looked up at this man who'd become everything she'd been afraid to want, and felt something break open inside her chest. "I can't let you die for me. Then fight with me. We face this together. Or not at all." The organization rallied with a speed that left Ren breathless. Within hours, every enforcer was armed, every business fortified, every ally contacted. If the Syndicate wanted war, Talon's people would give them one they'd never forget. But first, Ren made a choice. She found Talon in his office that night, her heart pounding. "I want to complete the bond." He looked up, surprise and hope warring on his face. "Ren, not because of the war, not because I need protection." She moved closer, her voice steady. "Because you've spent 3 months proving you see me as a partner, not property. Because you gave me freedom when you could have taken it. Because I trust you. Because I choose you." The mating ceremony was private, just them, Kira and Leo as witnesses, Ivy watching with tears in her eyes. When Talon marked her, his teeth gentle on her neck, Ren felt the bond snap into place like a key turning in a lock. And through that connection, she felt everything: his absolute devotion, his determination to protect her autonomy even while claiming her, his fierce love that saw her humanity before her usefulness. When she marked him in return, Ren finally understood what Kira had meant. The mate bond wasn't ownership. It was choosing each other, every day, in a world that tried to break them both. The Syndicate attacked at midnight with the coordinated precision of an organization that had been planning this assault for weeks. Explosions rocked 3 of Talon's warehouses simultaneously. Gunfire erupted at the waterfront clubs. Enforcers clashed in the streets while civilians ran for cover. It was chaos designed to overwhelm, to force Talon's organization into defensive positions, while the Syndicate's main force pushed toward the high-rise where Ren was supposedly hiding. Except Ren wasn't hiding. She stood in Talon's operations center, wearing tactical gear, silver-laced weapons strapped to her body that would burn any other human who tried to touch them. Around her, a strike team of 12 waited for her signal: Kira, Leo, and 10 others who'd volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. "They expect us to defend," Ren said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "They're throwing everything at our territory to keep us pinned down. But I know their infrastructure. 3 years of cleaning every facility, every warehouse, every route they use. While they're here attacking us," she pointed to a map, marked with her intimate knowledge of Syndicate operations. "We're going there, to their headquarters. And we're burning it all down." Talon's hand found hers, the mate bond singing between them with worry and fierce pride. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." Ren met his amber eyes. "They took 3 years from me. From Ivy, Marcus, Sophia, from dozens of others. This ends tonight." They moved through the city like ghosts, while the main battle raged blocks away. Ren led them through maintenance tunnels and back alleys she'd learned during 3 years of body disposal, paths the Syndicate thought only they knew. Their headquarters was a fortified warehouse complex in the industrial district, heavily guarded normally, but tonight most of their forces were deployed attacking Talon's territory. Ren's silver immunity made the difference. She disabled silver-based security systems with bare hands, cut through silver-reinforced locks, handled weapons that would have crippled anyone else. They breached the complex in under 10 minutes. What they found inside made Ren's stomach turn even after 3 years of horror. Holding cells packed with people. children being trained as future cleaners, a torture chamber that made the basement where she'd found Talon look merciful. "Get them out," Ren ordered. "Every single one. And anyone who tries to stop us." Her voice went cold. "They answer to me." They rescued 38 people that night, cleaners who'd survived even longer than Ren. Trafficked workers the Syndicate had been selling to other gangs. Children as young as 8 who looked at Ren with the same dead eyes she'd seen in her mirror for 3 years. "You're safe now," she told each one. "I promise, you're safe." The Syndicate's leadership fell as dawn broke over the city. Some died fighting Talon's main force. Others were executed by their own people once they realized the war was lost. The ones who survived to surrender faced Ren's judgment, and she was not merciful to those who'd built their power on broken people. By the time the sun rose, the Iron Syndicate's empire was shattered. Talon's organization absorbed the territory, but with new rules written in blood and enforced absolutely. No trafficking, no torture, no using civilians as shields. Anyone who broke these rules answered to the Queen, and Queen Ren was not forgiving. Years later, Ren stood in an outreach center on the east side, funded by the legitimate businesses Talon's organization ran. A young woman sat across from her, 17 years old with bruises hidden under long sleeves and eyes that recognized horror. "They say you used to be a cleaner," the girl whispered. "For the Syndicate, that you were complicit in everything they did." "I was," Ren said honestly. "For 3 years, I cleaned up after murders and torture. I disposed of evidence. I did terrible things to survive, and I carried that shame every day." "Then, how," the girl's voice broke, "how do you live with it?" "I made one choice, one moment of choosing compassion over survival." Ren leaned forward. "I saved a life when walking away would have been safer. That choice led me to a man who saw my humanity before my usefulness, who fought to protect my freedom even while claiming me as his. And together, we built something better from the ashes." She took the girl's scarred hands in hers. "You're not tainted by what you've witnessed. You're not disposable. Your past doesn't define you, your choices from this moment forward do. And there's a whole organization ready to help you reclaim your life. The right people don't own you. They fight to protect your freedom while making sure everyone knows you're protected." The girl left standing taller, hope replacing some of the despair in her eyes. Ren watched her go, then turned to find Talon in the doorway, still watching her like she was the most fascinating thing in his world. "How many does that make?" he asked. "This month? 43. Ren moved into his arms, the mate bond humming contentedly between them. 43 people who now believe escape is possible. Because of you. He kissed her forehead. The queen who cut chains in the dark and changed the entire underworld. Ren smiled against his chest, thinking about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, invisible, broken, believing she was irredeemable. And the woman she'd become, powerful, respected. Proof that redemption was possible even in the darkest places. She'd been nobody, just a cleaner. Now she was a queen who taught other nobodies that they were extraordinary too. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Have you ever had to rebuild trust after feeling disposable? Have you found people who fought to protect your freedom while claiming you as family? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Subscribe for more shifter romance featuring dark settings where hope survives, patient courtship that respects trauma and honors healing, and love that empowers rather than controls. These are stories about autonomy as sacred, about partnerships built on genuine respect even in the darkest places, about people who prove that broken doesn't mean finished, and complicity doesn't mean irredeemable. Your support helps create more stories for people who need to hear that they're not defined by what was done to them or what they had to do to survive. That one choice toward compassion can change everything. That the right people will see your humanity before your usefulness. Because sometimes the most powerful love stories aren't about perfect people in perfect situations. They're about survivors finding each other in the darkness and choosing to build something better together. One choice, one moment of courage, everything changes.